right. Happy Friday. Ignore the pings. Ignore the pings. I had to get this talk off because I think it's important for us artists to think about. I think like whenever my art has become uninspiring, there could be many reasons. I think one reason is if I'm taking it too seriously. Like every time I'm creating, I'm having an expectation in my head of this has to be like this. Automatically, what I create ends up not being as good because I think at the end of the day, when you're creating something, your creation is actually the is leading you, you know. And while you might have an idea or a concept, sometimes it might turn into something else, and you have to be as an artist willing to change courses and explore that other avenue. And even if you don't end up going that path, it still gives you the knowledge. You know, you still get the wisdom, and that's what it's about. It's about, growing and learning as artists and going down that path. But one other reason I feel art can get uninspiring, which I think is the most important, is uh, not having good inputs. And what do I mean by not having good inputs? At the end of the day, when you create art, you that's an output. You know, you created some type of piece about some type of concept, and now it exists in the world. But what inputs led to that creation? You know, and the inputs that led to that creation is your life experience, your emotions, your memories, your childhood, or like the things that inspire you. You know, there's all these things that accumulated throughout your life that made you able to create this piece. And I think if you're not taking in good inputs in your day-to-day life, your art can suffer. You know, I can remember that, during COVID, my art really suffered because I was on my phone a lot. You know, didn't know where to go. I was unemployed at that time. I was on my phone a lot, scrolling through the apps, watching YouTube videos. I wasn't reading anything. It was just straight consumption. And when I came to create, you know, I felt like the stuff I was making around that time was actually pretty dark. Was actually super dark, and it all had the same type of tone. It wasn't really it wasn't really like what I would call inspiring, you know? It was actually very dark. I feel like a lot of time I would show people my music around that time. They would think I was like really depressed or really like sad. And I was like, I'm not depressed. I'm not sad. But it's like the inputs I was having at that time just weren't good. I was on my phone a lot. Um, I didn't really know the direction, my life was going. There was a lot of stress around that time. I'm like, I don't have a job. I have to get a job. All these things. Inputs are bad, and it made my art suffer. And I think as artists, we have to think about that. Our art is not separate. Like you don't. Your art isn't just going to your studio, going to your place, and making something. It comes from your life. It comes from your experiences. So the more rich your experiences and inputs are, the better your art will be. So if you listen to really good music and really listen to it, and if you watch good movies, if you have good conversations, if you meet up with your friends every once in a while and actually like talk, like if you, exercise, if you go on walks, all these inputs will make your art more beautiful. And we have to start realizing that that's the most important thing as artists, like what you're inputting into your life and what you're doing in your life will 100% affect the type of product you're creating. So when you think about what type of art you want to create and what kind of like is your goal, and you might not even have this at the moment yet. I don't think you have to have it, but at the end of the day, just what do you gravitate to? Like, what do you feel are you excited to create? And then be like, okay, what kind of things would help that type of art be better? And you do those inputs, like your art will really improve. You know what I mean? Like I feel like for me, at least for the last year, I released an EP called "I Wish I Never Fell in Love," and that was definitely like uh kind of like a biography of my late 20s and going through heartbreak, going through stages where I didn't know where I wanted to go, like being having doubt, all these things. It definitely encompassed like how that felt. But after that, I feel like all the songs I was making were just kind of like around the same kind of tone, and that's not a bad thing. I'm appreciative and I love the songs I created, you know, during that time. I was like the Lulu Friday, all these things, but they were all hitting around the same tone, and I had to think about like, hey, what have I been ingesting? And I was kind of ingesting like the same type of music, like the same uh, kind of like things I always ingest. I wasn't really going deep and doing different type of things to be able to give the inputs I wanted to create different type of art. And when I started ingesting different things, I started reading more books. I started watching more movies. I started like going on walks. I started like appreciating nature more, and all these things. This type of art I started creating completely changed. Like it was completely different, and it wasn't because I was trying to do that. It's just the inputs changed, and that's like that taught me something. And that taught me that you have control, some level of control about the type of art you create, if you spend your time wisely, and if you are really cognizant on creating a life that makes you excited to wake up in the morning. And granted, I know life can get crazy and we have bills to pay, and we have families, people, health issues, a lot of things happen. And even in my life, this year started out crazy with like people dying that I loved, all these things, you know all these things happen, and it's like you can't really, it's when you go through it and you can't dwell in it though. You you have to accept that life will give you challenges, but you also have to know that a lot of times like challenges that come through life help you with your art journey. Like if all your art was just happy and just everything's perfect, like would it really like touch people? you know like you have to be able to be present in these moments that you're going through in your life, because it can help you create art that makes not only yourself feel seen and make yourself feel understood, but the people who ingest your art, you know, because we're all living life and we go through a lot of similar things. Um, and I think sometimes as artists, our job is to kind of show people that, hey, like, you're not by yourself. Like, I understand, you know? We say what people aren't willing to say out loud in a beautiful way. And, you know, that's what I think moves culture. Like without artists, without people out here saying the thing out loud, like where would we be? Um but I think that, where we're at right now, our lives are very ingrained in technology with phones and with all these things. And the thing about that is like that's our inputs now. The more you're interfacing with technology and the convenience of it, you almost become kind of like the technology and the things that you're inputting. If you're on your phone all the time, or you rely on technology a lot, you don't do things, you don't take that walk down the street, whatever, you start to become like the technology. And I think it's why we're so analytical these days. We track everything. Oh, gotta hit the 10K steps. Oh, my sleep score is not good. Oh, like I gotta get macros perfect. Gotta get the oh, like um gotta save this amount of money. It's like we're literally becoming like low key robotic, you know? Like low key like technology, because that's our inputs. But I don't think that way of living is natural to us. I think it bypasses what makes us human. You know, like I don't think optimizing helps you. It helps when you're like if what you're optimizing makes sense, but like optimizing for the sake of optimizing, I think it just makes you less human, more easy to control. Because at the end of the day, like you're just becoming like some type of machine. Instead of being like, hey, like how do I want to live my life? What do I want to do? What things, do I find enjoyable? What things do I not find enjoyable? And creating a life that fits you. At the end of the day, I have a phone, I like Instagram. I'm not one of those person telling you you shouldn't be on Instagram, you shouldn't be on this phone, get off the apps. It's really just about, do you really want to be on an app for 3-4 hours a day? Like calculate how many hours that is in a year you're just spending on Instagram, giving other things attention. When you can when you in your own life you're like, oh, I don't have time to do this, or oh, I don't have time to reach this goal. It's like, no, the time is there. You know, the time is there. It's just we're giving it away. And as artists, you know, I think we're under this pressure that you have to go online. And me as a musician, you have to go on TikTok, post 10 times a day, and play and dance on camera or whatever. And if that's your inputs, like I don't think the art is gonna be as good. As I think as an artist, your art is the most important thing, and whatever makes your art better, that's what you should be doing, and everything else is secondary. Because if the art really is good and it gets better and your heart is in it, it shines through. And there's other ways to make sure your art gets noticed that you can find, you know, and that you can do. You can do more, you can do less, but get more out of it. Or you can find different ways that doesn't feel like you're just doing what you have to do on these apps. Like you don't have to believe that this is the only way. You're an artist. You're at the core, you're a creative thinker, creative problem solver. you know you have to be creative and think differently and do things differently, and take your own evidence. Don't always just listen to what other people are telling you to do. And if you do, you try it out, test it out, see if it works, and you apply your own knowledge and your own understanding to it, and not just blindly out here being taught what to do by like people, strangers on the internet, who are just at the end of the day, they just garner your attention for their own ends and means, which is not inherently bad. I think we're, at least if you're watching this video, you could say I'm doing the same thing. But um at the end of the day, it's like I feel like I may have advice or answers for you, but the best answer is always the one you find in yourself. Like, you know, and any advice that doesn't point you back to yourself, I think you should take a lot more time to think about that. Because there's 100 different ways and millions of different ways to get to a place, um, as an artist and as any individual in life. But like, yeah, your inputs, they matter a lot, and I just wanted to talk about that. But anyways, it's Friday. Ironically, I have a song out called Friday if you want to listen to it whenever you see this. But yeah, I'm gonna continue on my day. I'm on my lunch break. That's why you keep hearing the ping on my Teams. I'm not airing out what I do for my day job, but it'd be on a computer. But anyways, um, yeah, think about your inputs, man. Write it down, write about it, and see, what about your inputs are just not working out for you. And this advice, it's not just for artists; it's for anybody. It's just your inputs give you your outputs. Just like your type of food you eat will give you different type of energy, or your inputs matter a lot. So pay attention to them and make sure you're choosing the inputs you want in your life, and they're not just placed upon you, or they're not just bad habits you've been running for x amount of times. Like, habits change, bro. You just have to make the effort, because at the end of the day, you only live once, and you have to think about, if you had to repeat the same life over and over again, would you want to repeat this one? And if the answer is no, it's time to start making sure that if you had to live the same life all over again, you would be excited to live it again. That's what it's all about. So yeah, I'm ROBX. I make music. If you're into music, go give it a vibe or listen. And yeah, peace.